We are back. Another episode of Cerebral Pundits. You have myself, Mr. Casey Blueford, joined by my co-host, Ms. Avita Miller. Avita, what's going on? How are we doing today?
Doing great. I am excited for today. And we have an official name. Super exciting. Yeah,
we do. And you help with the logo design as well, so we'll be rolling that soon. So pretty excited
I've contributed, about that. Even though this is his thing, I have contributed just a little bit.
It's not just my thing, it's a we. It's definitely a we over a me.
No,
we have a guest today for the first time.
We do.
So I'm pretty excited about this. And you want to talk about our guest before I talk about our guest? Before we introduce her?
I mean, I think we could, well, no pun intended, collectively talk about her. I think this is, I know people say special guest, but I really do feel like this is special for multiple reasons because she is an absolute killer when it comes to just being an entrepreneur, being a mom, being a woman, just all around. But also we've both gotten to know her pretty early on in our journeys of this space or this community. And yeah, I found out, I think we actually both did our first podcast with her as well, potentially.
Yes.
I think this full circle moment. I'm very glad to have her here.
No, so it's interesting. So when we were talking about it, I was like, okay, I want to do a guest every so often. Who would be the first best person? And when you brought up I was thinking, and then you brought up the name, and I was like, yeah, that works. I think it just fits because the commonality is there, and someone I love talking to. So let's bring her on stage. Miss, you can introduce our guest, and I'll bring her on stage.
Miss Daniella Devine is joining us.
Daniella, what's up? We don't talk anymore. What is up?
Generous introduction, y'all. I don't know about all that, but
you heard? Wait, you heard all that? Yeah. I thought you were backstage or mute. I thought you were mute.
No, I'm very grateful. Just really glad to be here with you guys. Both of you, I've talked to a lot in different parts of our sort of entrepreneurial journey, and I know I miss you, Casey. I want to know what's going on in your life, and I get to talk to Avita more often. So
I know we'll definitely have to catch up. It's cool. Remember we did this for the first time over a year ago. That was like one of our first. We were kind of just getting going, and it was. I remember getting off of it and being like, that was fun. That was a lot of fun just having a conversation with you. So I appreciate you joining us in this journey. And I know you have no clue what we're doing, so I'm pretty excited about that.
Love your hat. Niners killed it the other day.
For sure. Always repping. All right, so let's talk about the connection. Actually, you know what, Daniella, let's introduce yourself. What do you do? How can people, we'll talk about how people can find you, but what do you do right now? What are you currently doing?
So I am in real estate. I'm a commercial broker in California, and I really feel like I'm coming into my own, and that I really live at this intersection of business and real estate. And so as a commercial broker in California, I'm able to help business owners find their forever homes or their next home, upsizing, downsizing, growing, coming into the state, leaving the state. And I'm also able to help investors. I am one of the partners at the TC Collective, and we are a niche creative transaction management company. And so I just live and breathe real estate and structuring and deals and business ownership and operations is a huge part of my history, and it's becoming a big part of my future too.
Absolutely. Love it. Awesome. And let's talk about the new addition to the family. So you got a new addition to the family. So how was it when we first talked? We both had 2.
Yes.
Now you have 3. And I'm not following you any further than that. Let's talk about that. How's that being mama 3 now?
I think a lot of parents have a real bad habit, and this, of going, just wait until they turned 5, like wait until, and like a lot of people told me this was going to tip me. It has not. She is the easiest thing in my life, which I think says a lot about what's going on in my life. But yeah, I mean, like she's with me right here. I would say that the hardest part is somebody mentioned this to me and I think it's really relevant about the way people think and the way that they work, that it doesn't matter if it's corporate, W-2, entrepreneurs, whatever. And that sometimes for certain people, it's really hard to move between different subject matters when they get interrupted. And I would say that that has been the hardest part, is that like, it's very, very hard for me to get in the zone and focus and pump out a lot of work, because I'm always stopping to help out Isla, which I'm very grateful that she's here. I did things this way specifically so I could have her home. But with that, it's like the balance of ambition and reality,
Tell me
and just however many hours are in a day, right? And then like being present when the family does come home, and it's like, I've been with my family all day, but like now there's 3 more humans in the house. And like that's what's been really hard, is I don't have, like, even during pregnancy, I could like pump out like 12 hours of like super focused work because the boys were in preschool or whatnot. And now like I feel like I'm working longer days and getting less done.
Yeah, it's interesting. This is a whole different conversation. I'll end it here. Flow, right? So like I'm big on flow. I'm big on trying to find a flow and just in everything, in every aspect of life. But when you're a parent, the small things interrupt that flow, and then you have to start over and trying to find the flow. So I totally get what you're saying. Obviously, I have 2, not 3. And
But
I'm not
you
the
have
one,
young kids.
Yeah, and I'm not the one giving out the food per se. So like it's a totally different type of experience, but nonetheless, like I get it.
Yeah.
So okay, so we're gonna talk to. So the reason we brought you on today, because we felt that for one, you'd be a great first guest to talk to. But in addition to that, we felt like the subject matter that we're going to talk about today fits. Okay. So we're going to talk about habituation and how habituation can be looked at from a positive standpoint. And I'm not going to say a negative standpoint, but just in a different approach and like the different levels to habituation. So I thought this was interesting because I've always felt that you were someone who is very confident in their ability and very, very present in the moment and really appreciates the moment. So when we talk about habituation, we want to get like your insight onto what we're going to talk about. But in addition to that, like, I think you have, either habits or routines or just something that's instilled within you that could be shared to others as well. So that's why I felt like you're the perfect person to have this conversation with. So, your strong foundation, your appreciation for life, your balance of work and life, like those are things that even peer to peer, like I admire about you, and I want you to be able to share that. Okay.
Thank you.
How we operate is, so on YouTube, on TikTok, on any platform, like we're kind of overwhelmed with material right now that's out in the world. So what me and Avita do is we're going to watch clips of specific podcasts, and we're going to almost watch it like you do in sports. So saying in basketball, you want to get better. What do? You watch film, right?
Okay.
And figure out how to get better. Football, you want to get better. You watch the film, you dissect it. So we're going to watch clippings of a specific podcast, and then we're going to analyze it.
Okay.
And we're going to get your approach as well. So
cool.
Avita, what are we watching today?
So it's another Mel Robbins, but I thought it was really cool because she's interviewing, what is she? Not a neuroscientist. I think she is a neuroscientist.
Yeah, she's a neuroscientist. Yeah.
Yeah. So she has a guest who's a neuroscientist, and they dive into habituation. And like you said, kind of exploring like, what would that look like in our lives? How could that be potentially positive? How could that maybe bring awareness to some things that are maybe not so pleasant or need attention, I'm going to say. So not necessarily a negative, but just like, okay, now that I see this, I'm more aware of it, or things that we don't notice because it's become habit.
Okay.
So I thought that was interesting, and how that can apply in not only your personal world, but also just in business or running teams or people as a whole. So like a good overarching theme there.
All right. So let's watch our first clip together.
Yeah.
Make sure the volume's up so everybody can hear. There we go.
Habituation. So habituation, it's really a fundamental process, our fundamental rule that governs how our brain works and every neuron in it. And it's basically our tendency to respond less and less and less to things that are constant or that change very gradually or are frequent. So for example, an easy example, you walk into a bakery, there's like the smell of the baked goods and the cake, and studies show that within 20 minutes, you cannot detect the smell any longer. The olfactory neurons in your brain stop responding because the smell is constant around you, right? So very fast, they will actually stop and you won't be able to smell it. You probably had this with perfume, right? When you first buy perfume and you put it on, it's really salient. Next day, a little bit less, third day, a little bit less. A month goes by and you can't smell your own perfume.
It's so true.
Yeah, so that's habituation. Or you jump into a pool, it's really cold, but you tend to get used to it. After a few minutes, it's less cold, right?
Mhm.
And so just as you habituate to smells or to temperature, you also habituate to more complicated things in your life or in society.
All right, let's pause it right there. So let's bring it back home. So, Daniella, question is for you. What are your thoughts on that? What are your thoughts on that? So, like, in your adulthood, do you tend to habituate pretty frequently? Or, and if so, what are some of the things that you like? You know what? That's a good point. I kind of do that. Like, I kind of overlook that.
I think that this is really, really, really relevant when you face a period in your life that you're feeling dissatisfaction, right? And like you're trying to pivot, and that pivot feels impossible, whether it be because of your financial resources, time allocation, what you have on your plate, and you're going, I can't possibly do this. How can I possibly do this? And so I think I've habituate frequently in my life, but it's mostly because I love change.
Mm-hmm.
And so like the way that I've been able to navigate my life is I love a good plan. I need a goal. I need to be marching towards a serious goal. And that allows me to habituate quickly because I know that I'm working vigorously towards something that I feel will have a massive impact on my life.
No, that's so good because when we decided to have this interview, you answered it how I thought you might answer it, which is good. So that means we're on the right path because I knew I was going to get like a genuine response, and I felt like this topic is so relevant to me. And Avita, I want to get your thoughts on it. Like, is habituation is it just a normal thing we do in our adulthood, or as we go through, like Daniella mentioned change, like is it inevitable, so to speak?
I'll go on the other side of the spectrum. I'm chuckling because I'm like, yeah, no, not for me. I'm like aspiring to. I am definitely working towards creating those habits. But it's funny because I was literally just thinking earlier where there's certain things that as you grow up, like you were talking about adulthood versus, maybe something that's more innate or whatever. But I was thinking how like when I was younger, you kind of think that with a certain age, you'll kind of just like become certain things. Oh, I'll just have these habits. Oh, well, then I go to work and then I have a family and then I just, but like, you don't think about what are the habits or whatever that builds it. Like, no, you would have to like, if you want to be like fit or it's no different than building well, like, oh, well, then you would have to go to the gym or like do something, create the habit to build that thing. And I think it's interesting because I feel like I was definitely on the other side of the spectrum and probably a little bit of the ADHD side kicks in as well of just like, I literally am working to even just build habits of like regular everyday tasks and like how do I make that not daunting? So yeah,
it's interesting. It's interesting because as I listen to both your guys' response, it's two different ends, but I feel like we always have like a need or desire to want the next thing, right? And it's like, okay, we do this, and then I got to get to this, or I can't necessarily feel that way until I accomplish this.
Yeah.
So I want to play this clip because it kind of transitions to that. So like the urge of always wanting something new. So let's hear what they have to say.
It's about what's new.
Okay.
What just happened. It doesn't really care that much about the old. And it makes sense, if you think about it like in an evolution kind of way, and in, your ability to adapt. When something new is happening, your brain needs to process, because maybe you need to react, right? Maybe it's like threatening. But after, it's been there for a while and you're fine, well, we really need to keep our resources. The neurons need to be ready for the next new thing that's coming. So we're ready to react to that. And so new is what we are noticing the most and what we're acting to the most. And just to give you kind of like a fun example.
Yeah.
I was working with a tourism company where they wanted to know what makes people happiest on vacation and when they're happiest on vacation. So we went to the resorts and we surveyed people and we asked them, hey, what was the best bit of the vacation? And there was one word that they repeated more than any other word, and it was first. The first view of the ocean, the first cocktail that I had, the first sandcastle that I built, right? The first was new and exciting. Now, the second view of the ocean, that was good too, but it wasn't quite as good as the first, right? And the second cocktail, fifth cocktail was quite good, but it wasn't good as the first cocktail.
All right, so bringing that back home, Daniella, I want to come back to you. Because I feel like you're someone, like I said, who I look towards and look into comfort to. Like, I feel like you're always so present. So how do you balance being very goal-centric, ambitious, driven, but at the same time still be very present and okay in their situation?
Okay, so habituation is a survival skill for me, right? Like, I am not surviving if I cannot move quickly and focus and dedicate myself to the next rung, right? Like if I had all the resources in the world and I wasn't working and I could do whatever I want, I'd still have a goal. I'd still have a project. I'd still be working towards something, because to me that brings me mental health. When I like that saying about the devil, idle hands make the devil's work or whatever, like that's me. When I'm in limbo, when I don't know what I'm working towards, I'm a miserable human being. So I think for me, habituation is a survival skill, and that moves into, how I keep myself present is that I always still am exactly where I am. It doesn't matter that I'm working towards the future. I'm still stuck where I am. I have to be okay with that. I have to be able to sleep at night.
So let me ask you a question. Is it a sense of like you feel grounded, or use the word stuck? Do you feel stuck, or do you feel like you're walking in mud at times, or is it just like, hey, like I'm firm. I'm firm where I'm at, or does it feel like a sense of like being stuck? Like how does that feel for you?
I would say, like every other thing in human existence, it's a constant, right? It's not a constant. It's not a constant. There are some days where I feel eternally stuck. I'm not making progress fast enough. I can't see the fruits of my labor fast enough, especially in this era that we're living in, where everything is very quick. And some days I feel I get like that one email. All I need on most days is one email to know that I'm doing exactly what I need to be doing, and I have to keep doing it. I mean, I'm at the part right now in two of my businesses where it would be so freaking easy to jump ship and go to another thing and feel like the other thing is going to bring me that sense of gratification more immediately. And that would make me feel closer to my goals. And that would make me feel more accomplished and secure. But all those things are just perceptions. So I know that I have to go through the days where I'm stuck in the mud, swimming in the mud, drowning in the mud, crying in the mud, so that it's not about how quick I get there. It's about like the journey, because I'll tell you guys, like I've been through some stuff in business and in real estate where I feel now I am tough as nails, but there will be more hardship to come. And if I skip the hardship because I am seeking, if I'm not seeking the suffering of the present, the suffering of what I'm dealing with on a day-to-day, whatever I build will have no teeth. It will fall.
So it's interesting you say that. And Vita, I'm going to come to you because one we're not going to go to this clip, but Daniela, one of the things that she talks about, they're talking about vacation, and she talks about the happiest time on vacation. And it's actually the happiest time. She says studies have shown the happiest time on vacation is the day before the vacation actually happens.
Oh,
It's almost like the anticipation for the vacation. And I
Yep.
feel like that applies to so much into what we do, not just in our life, but in business as well. So, like in the community that we're all a part of. I mean, I'm sure without naming names, but we've seen a ton of people come in and excited, and 2 months later they're kind of like gone. Right.
Yeah.
And I think it's the anticipation, and in addition to like not really realizing the work and the calluses that you have to build in order to achieve the success that you want to go to. So,
Yeah.
Avita, my question is for you. When
Sure.
he talks about the anticipation and that, with that being said, like, do we put more fulfillment on the what if versus the actual like getting to it? So, like, what if can do this? What if I can do this? Or like, well, maybe if. So what are your thoughts on that? Sorry, I try to frame it as best as I could, but hopefully
No,
that
I
makes
think
sense.
that makes sense though, because I think this comes down to the same idea of like when they say you could achieve what you thought maybe was like the highest goal or the highest title or accomplishment, and you could still be unfulfilled. That's why you have people that are filthy rich and miserable. You know, if
Mhm.
it was about the thing, they would have found everything they ever wanted, but they haven't. So it's the idea of like, what if all these things that you get lost in? So I feel like the real question becomes of how can you, kind of like we were talking about a little bit, but like how can you be satisfied in the moment as well as with the journey so that
Mhm.
fully fulfilled versus constantly chasing something that you'll never get to, and then you end up looking back one day and going, man, I could have just like enjoyed the ride, or like
Right.
maybe I could have pivoted and just went on a different ride and been totally fine, you know?
Absolutely. So Daniela, coming back to you, would you say you're more intrinsically or extrinsically motivated?
Oh.
Intrinsically.
Intrinsically? Okay.
I think that it's hard not to be extrinsically motivated, right?
Mhm.
That's really, really challenging. That's very challenging. But
Mm.
I think that the things about myself that I'm most fulfilled by is the fact that I know that success and suffering work lock and step together. And because of that, I can move my way through things in life and never feel that sense of I don't give up, but I also don't feel disappointed. You know, like I have disappointed days, I have frustrated days, I have like moments in time, but
Mhm.
I know that success doesn't happen without sacrifice and suffering. So
Yeah.
I just all of it lives together in the present moment at the time. There is no sidestepping anything. So if I were to just work towards the big house and the fancy cars and all the things, and it just, you can't get there. You can't get there without the sacrifice. And I think that's what it's really easy to get lost in.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said about just finding, and I use some people use this interchangeably. I actually think there's a difference. There's something to be said about finding joy in the process, right? So I think happiness is a state of mind, right? Happiness could be temporary. I think joy is more longer lasting. It's more fulfilling. So I think that, like, to your point, like this has been a tough year for me personally, right? But I know that every time I take a fall or every time something doesn't work out, like, for one, like, God's got a plan for me. So like I feel like I'm already good there. But secondly, like, it's only going to make me that much like tighter. So like in the event that, like, when that breakthrough does come, like, it's not just going to be a short-term breakthrough. And that's the happiness piece. So that's what I feel like the joy is what's going to catapult me to that next level. So what I want to, Avita, I want to come to you. I want to ask you, like,
Yeah.
how do you think habituation impacts like the process? So like the importance of like loving the work you do, finding joy, not just happiness in what you do. Like, how does habituation impact that process in your point of view?
It's interesting. Yeah, I'm also kind of just taking in your guys' different perspectives because these are new to me. Like I'm like thinking of like suffering associated with success. I was thinking about how that is almost like you can't have growth without failure, but I've never heard it expressed in that way. So that was kind of interesting because to me, suffering has a very negative connotation or brings out negative emotions in myself. So I've kind of gotten I kind of got on that, but anyway, I'm like, I can transition over.
Think about this though. Think about this. Like, sorry to cut you off just real quick. It just made me think about it. Oh, did we lose her? Hopefully we'll don't.
No, she just needs to take care of the baby for a second.
Okay. Two words that go together. Why do we always? You never hear them really separate. It's always trials and tribulations. Right? It's not just trials. It's usually like they're always connected.
Yeah.
So it's like it's good and it's like the good and the easy way to say it's like the good and the bad, right? It's usually like they always kind of go hand in hand. So sorry I cut you off, but what were we saying about just like the process in general?
No, you're okay. I'm like, it was just something that like as I was listening, I was like, now I've gotten I'm down that rabbit hole now. But no, I think habituation lends itself well to the process, or it can. Right? Because I think that's the whole idea. I mean, we talk about it frequently, but like if you can slowly create habits that lend itself to your destination or to what you want to feel or how you want your day to look or whatever, you can kind of create whatever destiny you'd like. Like you can slowly adjust those. But I also think if you have habits or have that habituation of something that, like we said, if you don't have awareness around it, and maybe it's creating this destiny, but you don't realize that, I also see how that can kind of put people in this, analysis paralysis, or they're not seeing the results that they're like, I don't get it. I'm working 18-hour days and I'm in the trenches and like, I'm just not seeing anything for it. I don't get it. Okay. Well, if you look at that, it's like, okay, well, what are your actual habits though? Now it starts to dive into like, what are those habits? Why do you have them? Are they actually creating the result or feeling that you desire, or you think they are, but they could use some tweaking, and how do we do that in a way that's sustainable and not, habituation is not take your world and flip it upside down and go, okay, ready, go. Like, no, you're not going to put a baby on, a 2-wheel bike. No, they need to like grow up a little bit, and then they'll start with the tricycle and then they'll go onto a bike. It's like the same thing of like, we can't expect to adjust our we can't see somebody successful or look at their habits and go, I'm going to go recreate that today. No, I think it's habituation is like that slow, let's move the needle. And then that's how it becomes, okay, now I don't have to think about this set of things. What can I work on now? And you start building those building blocks, if you will. So that's how I see it.
So the slow grind.
Yeah.
I want to share a clip, and what I want to do is I want to get a real world example from both of you guys. So she's going to talk about an analogy.
Example, the partner is talking to some strangers, or the partner is on the stage doing something, right? And again, this is a form of dishabituation. You're seeing your partner in a different way because they are in a different circumstance. So now it's not the same old, right?
Yeah.
It's something new.
When does habituation pose the biggest, I think, threat to upsetting what might be like otherwise like a nice life? Because I could see how you getting used to your neighborhood, you getting used to I'll just take the example of a kitchen. Like, your kitchen's perfectly fine. And yet you probably spend a lot of time on social media looking at kitchens and thinking about a kitchen renovation. And then you walk into another person's house and you're like, oh, we should have a coffee bar. We should do, what if I did white cabinets? And now all of a sudden you're looking at your kitchen, which has been perfectly fine, and you no longer like it. You kind of hate it. And so does habituation make you start to reject or not like the things in your life, from relationships to your job, to your neighborhood, to your kitchen? Is that part of the problem with this?
I thought that was so good. So
yeah,
I say that because I do this. Well, I feel like I'm better at it now, but we live in a comparison culture, and it's something as simple as an analogy is just like couple months ago, someone asked me, who just started in the community, asked me to teach them to help learn how to buy a business. Taught them, spent a couple weeks, taught them, showed them. They finally get out there. They start to build up some momentum. And I found myself feeling some type of way, like, hold on, are they about to pass me? Like, are they like, I'm the one that showed it? Like, then I start looking at, wait, what am I doing? Am I doing something wrong? Literally, I had to step back. I had to think about it and realize, like, hey, like, I've been doing the same process for X amount of time, right?
Yeah.
It's a good process because someone else is using the same process. Why? Oh, lost my whole train of thought because the cuteness came in the screen. But it's I say that to say, like, it's very difficult to be in a comparison culture, a comparison world, and not want to compare to others. So, Daniella, we're going to come to you. What's a real world example of something maybe that you've just gotten over, just got through, or maybe actively going through to where like you felt the same type of analogy?
I live in a world where I am constantly servicing clients and doing the next big thing. So all the time.
Sure.
And I'm sitting there
That's
going
true.
like, I'm running your business and you're out here doing this and I'm in here doing the shit work. Like, this sucks, but I also, this is where this really helps me. I have reverse engineered my way to everything I've done in my life, and it has helped me stay in my lane. So I have to recognize that I might get involved with that person down the road when they become an expert at what they're doing, and then I get to do that thing with them. But it's not my job to become an expert at everything, or to, it's, just because we're on the same path. If you're skipping, if I feel you on my heels, like you're coming for me, I have to kind of recognize we're not really competing. I'm not really competing against you. I'm competing against myself. And so what this causes me to do is it causes me to go back to that picture of myself that I am reverse engineering my way to and go, no, you're on the path. Can you tweak this? Can you learn from that person? Was there something that they did that you haven't done that you can do equally well or better that can help you move towards your goal faster? Always. You can always learn from other people in a way that you can add to your strategy, beef up your strategy. But I have learned that I am going to waste way more time chasing other people's dreams. So I always go back to that picture of myself that I am moving towards the next chapter that I'm actualizing. And I go, if I did what that person is doing, is that going to further me on my road, or is that going to push me into a different lane? That always helps.
No, I think you hit on one good point. Multiple good points, but one thing that really caught my ear. Sorry, one good point. All that said, you hit one good thing. No, I'm just playing. No, there's multiple good things, but one thing that just stuck with me. I think that we always have to remember, like, there's room for more.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I think we're just in the scarcity age to where, like, you feel
we
like
want everything now, Casey. We want everything.
If you don't do it now, there's no room for me. Right. So even something that's doing this podcast, like, oh, there's 1,000 podcasts out there. Okay, that's great. Right. But maybe what you do, what you produce could be beneficial to like that one person. And that one person hears what you have to say, and that carries so much weight for that one person. And maybe that's what you were meant to do it for. So I think I'm very, like, I was really glad you said that, because it kind of gave me inner peace as far as like, that's right. I had to, you got to remind yourself there's always room for all of us too. Avita, what's your thoughts on that?
It's funny because I'm like, well, me and Danielle have actually talked about some of this recently, just because I think it is easy to like, or talked about it as in, I've been discovering that of it's like, how do you figure out your own dreams and then separate that from like the shiny object syndrome, if you will, and also be willing to like maybe lean into being on somebody's team or doing something for somebody else, but not lose sight of what you're doing, and it's this constant like push and pull of you're like, okay, I need to stay in my lane. Oh wait, but is this their dream? Is this my dream? What are we doing here? And yeah, it's tough. Like I know I've been pretty open about it with people recently. I'm just like, we're around so many, or at least for myself, I feel so blessed to be around so many high achievers and just people, you know, like you said, like Daniella's one of the co-owners, you know, I'm surrounded by these women who are strong and smart business women and investors and have the experience and, you know, are juggling all the hats, if you will. And so like, you know, they're human too, but it's funny because like at times, like I just see them as like, they're so far ahead. Yeah. Like it's hard to your point of comparing both sides, right? Like, cause I'm in that level. And then there's times, you know, I go to a lot of events. And so you're around a lot of people that are like chasing their first deal or who like all of a sudden they're somewhat starting to look up to me. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm trying to catch up to them. What are you like? What? I can't help you, you know? And so I think reframing that and just going, forget all the noise, forget all of that, stay in tune with yourself, you know? And so looking at it of, like you said, is your kitchen fine? Do you actually like it? Cool, then enjoy it.
I'm going to play a couple of clips back to back, and I want to get your guys' thoughts on it.
Okay.
On it.
Yes.
And you can say, well, Julia Roberts is not the average human being, right?
Correct.
She's quite a privileged person, but I think she's talking here about something that we can relate to, which is if you take a little break and you come back, then your life looks a little bit different, right? You dishabituate to some degree. Maybe it doesn't last very long, but you can see things a little bit differently.
Do you have
maybe more
recommendations?
realistic.
Do you have recommendations for how a person who's not leaving to go film a movie could do that if they're in a job that they go to all the time and they are in just this cycle of same person, same job, same, you know, neighborhood, same group of friends? How do you use this research to resparkle some pixie?
I'm going to fast forward just a little bit.
Is instead of closing your eyes and imagining your life without the person you're complaining about or without the kitchen that you have that is great and works fine and without, you know, the neighborhood you live in, that we instead look out instead of in and we go, oh, well, I like the way that relationship over there works better. And I like the way that kitchen over there looks better. And then you bring it back to your life and pound on the people that are there instead of taking a step to close your eyes and go, well, what would my life look like if they weren't here?
Daniella, want to get your quick thoughts on it, on this portion?
Yeah, this brings very relevant for me. I spent my 20s backpacking through countries on a few bucks a day. And I did that because I was really bored with my life and really dissatisfied with what I was doing. And what was
you had to eat, pray, love trip?
Oh no, it was not very Julia Roberts.
Okay.
It was like live on $3 a day in China with a backpack on your back and find a hostel that'll let you sleep on the couch that night so you can travel for a few weeks longer.
That's
wow,
wild,
okay.
Daniella. What a good project.
But my dad asked me, what are you thinking? What makes you think you can just land in a country you don't know and walk down to the subway, not knowing a language you don't know, and find your way to a hostel in the middle of and you're going to, like, what makes you think? And I said, I'm just going to figure it out, man. I'm going to be fine. I'm going to have some faith in the universe. Her saying this makes me really feel like this is what I do in my life. When I need a shake up, I do something jarringly new. Go to Chinatown, go to a new neighborhood, go try to speak a new language and communicate with people that you have cultural barriers with. Try something new, get out of your comfort zone. And also, this is how I architect my life. I'm always I love learning from people around me and places and things. And I'd come back from those countries not going, man, I really wish I could be an expat in Bali and do nothing for the rest of my life and just be a surf bum in Bali. Like, no, bro. Like, how can I take back things that I learned there that shook my soul? Because I'm very fortunate and lucky. And I was fortunate enough even to just budget the money to go and do that thing, you know, but like you have to force yourself into uncomfortable situations and circumstances to grow in life. And then you learn from those and you incorporate them back into your life. I completely agree with what she just said.
Wow.
Okay. Well said. Well said. Next one. Here we go.
Or you see them doing something that you've never seen them before. What her research suggests is that enhances attraction, right? But I think the message of like variety and novelty is important for our life in general. So people who have a more diverse life, they've maybe lived in different places. They work in different types of projects. They interact with different type of people. They tend to have a more psychologically rich life, right? So I think we could definitely do that. Whatever kind of life you have, you can actually shake things up a little bit. It can be something small, like how do you commute to work? What route do you take to work? It could be small like that. Or it could be like, maybe take a course, and it could be something online. Okay. So maybe you don't have the money to pay for like but take up a new skill or listen to a new podcast, right? So try to change things, or maybe start talking to someone or befriend someone who's different from.
Sorry, I got distracted. I had the little one coming for a second, but that kind of just really just goes hand in hand with everything that you were just talking about. So I thought that was a good point. And similar to what we mentioned at the beginning of this was, you're one of the people that we wanted to talk to because like your love of life, right? And I feel like that's not always genuine with everyone. So the fact that like you go about it the way that you do, like that is very aspirational for like a lot of people. Definitely aspirational. All right, so Avita, we're going to talk about a little about midlife crisis. So let me find the clip. And we're going to get on that.
Quarter life crisis. We're not mid yet. Okay.
I know.
Especially not Avita.
Hopefully not.
I know, definitely not Avita. So let me find the clip. Here we go.
Does habituation and the fact that you're now used to your life feel the most overwhelming?
Right. So I think it is when things are not changing for a prolonged time, and we see that in our midlife. And so there's this interesting thing called the U shape of happiness. So happiness is quite high in kids and teenagers, and then it goes down, 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 and reaches rock bottom in your midlife. But then it starts going up again and actually remains quite high until the last couple of years of life. And again, this U shape is on average, right? So it's thousands of individuals, and we're looking for a trend and, data from thousands of individuals. It doesn't mean that for every person, midlife will be the bottom part and, you'll be happy in the edges, but that's in general. And so why are people less happy in midlife? There could be many reasons, but one reason is it is the least amount of change, right? If you think about it, as when you're a kid, things are changing all the time. I mean, you're changing, you're growing, right? You're learning. It's like a most amount of change. Then you're in the 20s. You're trying different things. You're trying different partners. You're trying different professions. Maybe you're in university or in college, right? You're learning a lot. And then comes midlife, and things are kind of similar. Most people kind of stay in the same place because maybe people have kids. You're mostly on average, maybe with the same partner. You may be at the top of your game professionally, but you're kind of maintaining, right?
I thought that was so good. So honestly, this is one of my favorite parts about this whole episode, because I feel like I'm somewhat going through that now. So very similar to when we talked about flow and kids in the beginning, and obviously, one of them right here. But there's times when I do feel stagnant, and I feel like I'm not moving as fast as I would if I didn't have this, then this would be happening, right? If I wasn't in this situation, then this would be happening. So like, this is something that really registered with me, because even as of late, like I've had to tell myself, no, you're doing great. Like this is exactly where you're supposed to be. You're exactly where you're supposed to be. You still have your goals. You still have your objectives. Like everything is still going strong. But this is also a season that you have an additional investment. Like this is one of your investment. Like this is your ultimate investment. And I have to make sure I remind myself that, because you can easily get yourself into a funk of like not feeling that you're not feeling like you're further along as far as you want to be, right? So, Avita, what's your thoughts on that?
No, I'm glad you shared that, because I was going to ask you, I'm like, why did that hit home for you? So thank you for sharing that. I think that's cool. I think I've already hit midlife crisis number 1, or as you guys say, the
quarter life crisis.
The quarter life
Crisis.
I'm on the up of the first U, if you will, because there might be more. But I say that to say, I don't think my life is necessarily stagnant at this point, but I definitely think right before, like you guys met me in one phase of life. And like, that's why I think it's so cool hearing like where you guys are coming from, or hearing Daniella just like traveled the world, where I'm like, oh my God, this adds to the story. Like this makes sense why she's like, figure it out, do the thing. And in a good way, by the way. Like, but I think it's another puzzle piece. And so it's interesting because I hear this and I'm going, okay, maybe it's not, doesn't totally suit what they were describing, but in a similar way, like right before I met you guys, I was on a very repetitive cycle, we'll say, where similar type jobs, similar type people, similar situations. And I definitely was like, dissatisfied with it, but not doing anything about it, right? Like, I'm not changing anything. I haven't moved. I'm still in the same place, doing the same thing, going like, meh, like, why is it not changed? And then you shake things up, and some were by choice, some was not, of life just kind of hitting me with a bunch of major changes. And then like, next thing you know, that's where I'm like, I think it's kind of cool when she explains that of like, it seems scary. And when you're in it, you can't picture anything else. Right. Like, at least for me, and I don't know, some people, like, I'm going to reference like relationships, you wonder why people, stay in certain relationships, or like, why don't you leave that job, or why, and I'm like, I'm not going to lie. Like, I was one of those people. And it was just like, well, if you're not happy, why don't you just leave? Like, right. What are you doing? Go change the thing. But something about, we're talking about this habituation. And I do think it's easy to kind of just, you're in this like flow. You're just dissatisfied and you don't know what that's going to look like. But then, you flip things upside down a little bit or make these changes. And it's kind of incredible what that can do. Like, if you would have told me a couple of years ago, I'm sitting here right now doing this because of those changes, I probably still wouldn't have done it. I needed my journey. But like, but it's kind of crazy. Like, I feel like this is the reason you can tell somebody like, here, I'm offering you the thing. I'll pay for it, or I'll guide you, or I'll take you with, but like, they have to be ready. And so I don't know. I think this is a good reminder that like, whether you need a big change or even just something small, can you go to a different coffee shop? Could you try something new for dinner? Of like, what could that maybe do for your life and how you're feeling about things?
I want to get Daniella's thoughts on it, and I want to come back to that piece of change because that's going to transition to our next thought. Daniella, what's your thoughts on what we just listened to?
I can relate to you a lot. This is definitely not something I like share a ton of, but I'm getting more and more comfortable with it. Like I left a business where I was making well over $200,000 to go into a more stable, easy, right? I don't own it. I work for somebody else. Life will be so much easier. I'll have more like work-life balance, to like 150 grand, to going full on into entrepreneurialism and barely breaking 50 grand this year.
Yeah.
That lack of stability makes me want to die.
Yeah.
It gives me anxiety when I see people that are ahead of me, more stabilized, they can be more present in their life. It is very, very challenging for me. I could work 20 hours a day if I had no kids, if I didn't have my husband, right? But I've been waiting a long time for that guy. I slayed a lot of dragons to find him. And I have 3 beautiful, healthy children. And I live in one of the most beautiful parts of the world.
That's
so
true.
I know that stability is a perception in which it's going to ebb and flow in my life in different ways, but I'm going to get back there. So it's weird. It's hard, right? Like, all of this is so relevant. But the way you feel, I very much feel. The way you feel, I very much feel. But I have to tell myself every morning that I have to keep pushing.
Yeah.
So you said something that I want to hit on. You said, from a stability standpoint, you're going to get back there. I'm going to disagree with you. Here's what I think you're going to do from a stability standpoint. You're building a new foundation. So you're going to be stable in your new foundation. And that's going to be more sure footing than trying to get back to where you were. So your new foundation is going to catapult you even higher than you can even think.
Yeah.
Right? So like when you have one foundation, at some point it's going to sink. When you build a new foundation, you can grow upon that. So you're building new soil right now. And your new soil is going to take you to new heights.
Yeah. I want to share something really quickly before we jump into the next thing, because I think it's really relevant. Are you familiar with the company NVIDIA?
NVIDIA,
NVIDIA is the biggest producer of AI chips in the world, right? They are the most profitable company on the planet, and they are
Aren't they out of the Bay? Aren't they out of the Bay?
They are, and
Yeah.
they are the highest. Like they broke all these records as far as when they went public. They are the highest performing stock, I think, ever.
Wow.
And the owner of NVIDIA did a commencement speech at Stanford, and he said to them, "I wish you ample doses of pain and suffering." And he said it's because it will make you resilient in business, that most of you ended up here because of privilege, and you don't know true pain and suffering. And that's what will help you accomplish what I have accomplished, because I was not able to do that without ample doses of pain and suffering.
I love
And
that.
so I am suffering, y'all. Only up you, baby.
Painful suffering. No, it's so real, and I know we're getting down to like the last 10 minutes or so I'll keep it pushing.
Yeah.
But it is so real, because like my word of the year, like what was destined, my word of the year was breakthrough.
Really?
And it was breakthrough. And I think, Levita, I might have shared that with you. It was breakthrough. And there's been so many moments this year, I'm like, that's not a breakthrough. Like, that's an L.
You're like, is this counting? Come on.
That is a fat L. Like that. And then something else happens. I'm like, that's another L. Like, I'm like, it's October. Like,
Come on.
like what is this like?
L's are the breakthroughs, though.
Are we on a fiscal year? Like, so, but it took some like.
Mine was abundance, and I feel that at times. But I have to remember too, like, what were you classifying that as? You know, like to her point, are the losses actually part of the breakthrough?
Yeah, and it just took some to reassessing and kind of realizing like there have been breakthroughs. It might not have been financially as I probably wanted them to. Right. But there's been breakthroughs in so many different other aspects of my life. Even doing this right now is what I would consider a breakthrough. So
absolutely.
All right. Let me move on to the last part so we can get Daniella up out of here so we don't keep her too long. All right. Let's see. We're going to talk about environments.
Creeps in at a job where it's kind of the same thing most days.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're actually going to bypass. So we're talking about variety. So we're going to talk about variety in the workforce, but we're actually going to move forward. So my final question for you, one of the quotes from here is, if you change your environment, it enhances your creativity. And I was like, okay, that's a good point, because you could be so wrapped up in your current environment, and sometimes you just need to step out and you need to like walk to the coffee shop and let your mind think, or you need to go for a walk, and that's usually when you have your most creative thoughts, right? So she mentioned anytime you change your environment within the time it takes, so it usually takes about 6 minutes, and a 6-minute time frame is usually like something will like click. So my challenge to both of you guys, and challenge to me as well, let's try that. Let's try that for a week. Let's try to do 6 minutes outside of your current environment, just walking away to think, and see if any ideas hit you. So we're just going to do an experiment amongst ourselves for the next 7 days. Take 6 minutes out the day to go walk to the store, or, maybe take another route home, or, do something different, and just let your mind think and see if something kind of comes up to it. So we talked about the importance of trying something new. There's a joy in novelty, right? And a habit of trying new things. So Danielle, I want to come to you, because this is something that you found purpose with, and attempting and trying new things, and stepping away from a job. I think me and you have had these conversations as well, because I had a very similar situation where I left the job. I was getting paid more and came over here and started brand spanking new, right? And the challenges of that. But tell me, like, why do you find joy in trying new things? Like, what is it that sparks you to try something new? Because even the whole TC stuff, I mean, this has been a year and a half, 2 years now? I don't even know how long it's been, but it's still relatively new, right? Considering what you've historically done. So like, why do you find joy in new things?
Variety is the spice of life. And it is so deeply important to try something new, get to a new place, challenge yourself. The coolest thing is adaptation to change. So it's not just like, oh, this is so fun because it's new. It's about, oh my gosh, like I adapted to something new. I found success in something new in between hard times. I learned a new skill. I have something new to offer the world. I have something new to offer my friends and my family. Like, I think I'll always be working towards change.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah. I love it. Avita, what are your thoughts?
I love it. I just love hearing how you guys think. Like this is
You always say that.
because it is, because it's like you know me, like I need time to digest sometimes, where I'm just like taking it in and I'm like, this is why it's great to surround yourself with different people. Because like even hearing that, I'm like, to hear you say like I strive for change. I'm like, oh,
it's
really?
a motivator.
And it's a pot, like
I'm the same way. It's a motivator. It keeps you going.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever identified it as I'm striving for change, but I actually, as I'm reflecting right now, I guess that is a huge thing. But I think we were talking about earlier of like, you know, chasing the one goal or an accomplishment, like, does that do it? And I think for me, it's more of the change within myself, the change within others, you know, like I think that's the change I'm striving for. How can I be better today? How can I best show up today? Who could I help by the things we do? You know, we were saying like, if we record this and one person watches it, amazing. You know, like if we all sat here and learned something, to me, I'm like, worth it. It was worth showing up. And, you know, maybe now it's a little more comfortable, but initially, if we had let ourselves be held back by the idea that like, everybody else is doing this, we wouldn't have got to experience this. I wouldn't have got to hear your guys' perspectives or learn a little bit more of what you're going through and what, you know, has been successful, or the struggles that you're going through, you know, and look at these things differently, like things like sacrifice and suffering, and how, you know, even that quote of like a little dose, what that could do for you long term. So I think that's really helpful in hearing it. And so, yeah, I guess I am striving for the change as well.
See? Little did you know.
Right.
All right. So as we wrap up today, Daniella, I always want to make sure I give you your flowers anytime I talk to you, right? So like you, I consider you a friend. I don't really use that word too loosely. I consider you a friend. I consider you someone I can call and talk to. And I know we don't talk all the time, but that's what makes it cool though, because I feel like I can talk to you, whatever, and I just pick up and just have a conversation. And someone that I can like really, really relate to. And I know you've had a great impact on Avita's life, because we talk about you pretty often. And just to see the growth in her just within the last, 6 to 9 months, what you guys are doing is really, really impactful. So appreciate you. I just want to make sure that you knew that we purposely wanted to talk to you and have this conversation. I know it's probably like, all right, what are they doing? Like, what is this? But I appreciate you just being vulnerable, being open, and having that conversation. So before we get out of here, how can people contact you, reach out to you about business? How can they find you? And then what's one, word of inspiration or hope that you would love to get to the next person, who's listening to this, who's striving to maybe do more in their life? What would you want to leave us with?
Grit is a part of it. Just get your nails dirty, man. Like, break some stuff. It's going to be okay. You're going to recover. You're going to be okay. But like, you're not going to push past the really hard stuff into places where you find a lot of stability emotionally, financially, whatever it is, unless you push past. And that takes grit. So grit is the word. Sorry, Isla is not happy fine. Right now.
You're perfectly fine.
People can find me on Instagram at the Daniella Devine. I would love to talk to you.
Awesome. Well, appreciate you. Have a good one.
Thank you.